An empty room in the middle of the afternoon holds a specific kind of stillness. The sunlight enters through a single window, casting a long, rectangular patch of light across the bare wooden floorboards. There is no furniture to disrupt the trajectory of the light, so it reaches the opposite wall without impediment. The dust motes drift slowly within the beam, moving up and down in a quiet, predictable rhythm that requires no attention. The corners of the room are soft with shadow, blending seamlessly into the ceiling where the plaster is smooth and white. There is no echo because there is no sound to initiate one. The air is cool and undisturbed, carrying only the faint scent of old wood. The baseboards run continuously around the perimeter of the space, creating an unbroken boundary that encloses nothing but the volume of the room itself. Within these four walls, the absence of objects creates a heavy, comforting neutrality that remains completely unchanged as the minutes pass. A fresh sheet of paper rests flat on the surface of a dark oak desk. The paper is bright white, uniform, and entirely devoid of marks, lines, or creases. It possesses a subtle texture that is visible only when the light catches it from a certain angle. The edges are sharp and straight, defining a precise rectangle of potential that remains unfulfilled. There are no words to read, no shapes to interpret, and no corrections to consider. The emptiness of the page is absolute, extending from one corner to the other without variation. The desk beneath it provides a stable, unmoving anchor, its dark grain contrasting with the pale simplicity of the paper. A pen rests nearby, unmoved and capped, offering no threat to the stillness of the white surface. The eye can rest on the center of the sheet without being drawn to any specific point, finding a sense of balance in the complete lack of information. The sky just after the sun has slipped below the horizon transitions into a vast, featureless expanse. The bright blues of the day have faded into a pale, gradient gray that deepens toward the east. There are no clouds to catch the residual light, leaving the upper atmosphere completely clear and smooth. The gradient is so subtle that it is impossible to determine exactly where one shade ends and another begins. The horizon is a straight, dark line that cuts across the bottom of the view, providing a stark boundary for the endless space above. No birds are flying across this expanse, and the first stars have not yet begun to flicker through the twilight. The air feels vast and open, a profound overhead vacuum that seems to absorb the noise of the earth below. Looking up into this space provides no sense of distance, only a continuous, soothing field that remains perfectly still. An asphalt highway stretches out into the distance, completely empty of vehicles, pedestrians, or movement. The dark surface is divided by a series of dashed white lines that repeat at precise intervals, disappearing into the horizon where the road meets the sky. The shoulders of the road are lined with gravel and low, unmoving grass that has dried to a uniform tan color. There are no signs, no billboards, and no structures to break the continuity of the landscape. The air above the pavement is clear, free of the heat ripples that appear during the middle of the day. The silence is profound, broken only by the occasional low sigh of a gentle breeze passing over the drainage ditches. The road represents a pathway, yet in this moment it functions merely as a static monument to stillness, a long gray ribbon laid across the earth, entirely at rest under a neutral sky. A clear glass tumbler sits on a laminate countertop, holding nothing but the ambient air of the kitchen. The glass is clean, its surfaces polished, so that it almost disappears against the backdrop of the plain wall behind it. A faint, circular mineral ring near the bottom is the only evidence that it once held water. But that liquid has long since gone, leaving the interior dry and vacant. The light from a nearby window passes directly through the glass, refracting slightly at the curved edges, but otherwise leaving the space inside unaltered. The container does not feel deprived. It simply exists as a transparent boundary defining a small cylinder of space. There's no condensation on the outside, no bubbles clinging to the interior walls, and no movement within the rim. It is an object defined entirely by what it does not contain, resting quietly in its place, perfectly balanced. A wide, open field lies dormant during the late months of winter, stripped of its summer crops and left to rest under an overcast sky. The soil has been turned over and has settled into heavy, dark clods that are now rigid with frost. There are no green shoots breaking through the surface, no animals foraging in the furrows, and no human figures on the horizon. The landscape is a study in horizontal lines, where the brown of the earth meets the pale gray of the clouds in a long, soft blur. The wind moves over the field without resistance, finding nothing to rustle or shake except the occasional dry stalk left behind by the harvest. This emptiness is not barrenness. It is a period of absolute cessation, a temporary pause where the earth holds its breath and remains completely motionless, gathering no momentum and expressing no desire to change its current state of peaceful inactivity. An open drawer in an old wooden dresser reveals a completely bare interior. The dark-stained wood of the bottom panel is smooth, showing faint lines from where it was sanded decades ago. The corners are free of dust, containing no forgotten buttons, paper clips, or old receipts. The drawer remains extended by a few inches, inviting nothing and holding nothing. The smell of old pine rises faintly from the dark recess, a scent that speaks of time spent in closed spaces without disturbance. The tracks on either side are silent, resting in their grooves without any tension or weight. The emptiness inside the drawer feels contained and protected, a small box of nothingness nested within the larger structure of the room, completely separate from the demands of utility or organization, existing simply as an available void. A mirror hanging on a bedroom wall at midnight reflects only the dark, indistinct shapes of the opposite side of the room. It possesses no imagery of its own, serving as a passive surface that registers the absence of light without comment. The glass is perfectly flat and cold, untouched by dust or fingerprints, maintaining a clear but unneeded clarity. In the dark, the mirror does not project any identity or form. It simply duplicates the quiet shadow that fills the space. It demands no attention and requires no witness, existing as a silent pool of glass that holds the dark room inside itself, static and undisturbed, until the morning light eventually arrives to break the long, dark uniformity.